What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. So the first test has just finished between the Lions and the Springboks for the 2021 tour, and the Lions have won. This was pretty much a game of tug of war, I would probably say. Very much a game of two halves, all the cliches you want to associate with rugby. I did do a preview for this game last week or so when I actually did that, and then I did a follow-up video with the Rugby Guru after that. So we sort of went through the talking points of this game, and pretty much everything that I expected from this game, the exact opposite happened. I expected there to be very little kicking. Most teams would be trying to use the backs as much as possible to try and find room. The discipline would be way better, trying to cut down on penalties because they know how reliable both 10s are. And in the end, I think I gave it like I said that Springboks were probably going to win by about 5 points. And what we ended up with was a game of completely two different halves where there were 1,000 penalties. There were no backs for most of the game, and anytime the backs were used, they were brilliant, and we just never got to see them through it. Discipline was terrible. It was all sorts, and in the end, the Lions won by exactly 5. So I got that score pretty wrong in the preview. I did change my score on the Super Brew. If you're doing the Fantasy Predictor, I changed that before the game after doing a live stream I did with Rugby Guru last night. I did it on his channel. Feel free to go check out his channel if you want to go watch that. But I actually sort of began to change my mind after looking at the team a bit more and seeing how it was working. I actually put on the Super Brew app that the Lions were going to win by 5, and they won by exactly 5. So a lot of talking points to go through in this game. Of course, as we do for these videos, we will chuck the main game events up there for you guys. And as you can see, very much a game of two halves, and game discipline being very much separated out from that first and second half. So let's start going through some of the main events that happened in this game. So starting out, before the game even kicked off, there was one quick substitution. Wyn Jones no longer playing. Apparently he's picked up a slight injury during the training session. So Rory Sutherland coming in, to me weakening that front row a little bit, and Maka Vunipola took over on the bench for that. So there was only one switch, but not too desperate for the Lions. Starting off in that first half, the first attack coming in almost immediately. The Lions in the first minute having a really good attack. Dan Bigger going for the up and unders. It's the first battle we got to see in the game. Duhan van der Merwe versus Colby on the high ball. Colby did come out with the ball on top there, but Curry got pinged for the offside, and it was quite surprising to see actually how much in this game we got to see the high ball utilised, and especially those two players getting into contact. The amount of Duhan van der Merwe versus Colby, like air victory win battles, whatever you want to call it, that I actually think Colby won most of those aerial battles, considering Van der Merwe's about 2 feet taller than him. He's still managing to do really well in the air. So unfortunately that attack broke down just because Tom Curry was offside after the kick, so bit of a shame for them there. The first 5 or 6 minutes was really just a lot of kicking. There was a lot of testing, like I just said. The area battles were pretty big. However, South Africa were clearly managing to dominate the breakdown area. In the first 6 minutes, there were 3 turnovers at the breakdown. You know, that is really bad. The Lions really seem to be suffering with just not supporting the man or just throwing the wrong people into the rucks. There was an awful amount of situations where centres were involved in the rucks while forwards stood back. I'm not really sure what was going on there, but they weren't doing too well. They were looking much better in the line-outs. The line-outs for the Lions were pretty good across the board for this game. There was a couple towards the end of the first half that went a little bit awry for them, but they did pretty well. The first scrum came 10 minutes into the game, and South Africa looked strong in that. They got a penalty from that first scrum, and it looked like it was going to be pretty much that whole way. They did try and run it out, and the referee in this game was all about speed from what I could tell. There was speed in terms of the breakdown area, speed in terms of you ripping the ball, speed of using the advantage. He was relatively consistent. I did feel it was slightly harsh, the first one that came against South Africa. That advantage from that scrum, they literally ran 10, 15 metres forwards and then had their advantage taken away from them. And they kicked the ball onwards and it went away, and they were like, yeah, your advantage is over. I thought that was a bit harsh on them. But mostly throughout the game it was pretty consistent, so not too bad for them there. The Lions obviously had a bit of a game tactic for this one, kicking the ball an awful lot, a lot more than I wanted to see from them. They weren't exactly winning aerial battles. There was more that the South African handling was so poor on the aerial battles that knock-ons came and sort of penalties were going for offside and stuff. So I think that maybe the aerial battles weren't particularly necessary, but the tactic worked. But one thing we did see is that they obviously wanted to keep that ball in field. Very few Lions kicks made it to touch, and quite purposefully. It wasn't that they were just bad kicks. They were obviously holding them in field. We see it a couple of times. Tom Curry had a big one on Colby. There was another one that happened on Mapimpi. The up and under kicks that are meant to stay in field, and the wingers catching them and a bigger forward driving them into touch and actually winning themselves a line out, which, as I said in that preview video, so many line out jumpers for this Lions team. It was always going to be a real anchor point for them in this game. The first points in this one came in the 14th minute, a penalty again against Tom Curry. He had a couple in that first half for him, unfortunately, not rolling away. It was the first penalty, which was a relatively easy kick for Pollard, who had a bit of a 50-50 kicking day. It probably ended on like an 80% kicking ratio or something. However, much better in that first half and that second half. Really began to shake him up kicking-wise. So Pollard getting that first penalty. And only 3 minutes later, there was yet another penalty, which Pollard kicked again. Tom Curry, again, late tackle on Faf de Klerk from a box kick. Did nothing other than just trying to rattle Faf de Klerk a little bit. However, of course, the way the penalties work, when you're in a box kick, if you do an illegal tackle on a scrum half, the ball moves and the penalty is actually taken for where the ball landed. So they lost a good 40 metres there, and again, another easy one for Pollard. So within the space of 3 minutes, 2 Tom Curry penalties, giving away 6 points there for South Africa. Lions did manage to come back in the 19th minute. There was an offside, South Africa again. This penalty seems to be becoming more and more sort of an often occurrence now. Players kicking the ball, and for some reason the players ahead of them just keep running after it rather than waiting for someone to put them back on side. So an offside there, and Dan Biggar getting his first kick. So in the space of 5 minutes, it went from being 0-0, a real tight-knit game, to 6-3. Certainly switched up towards the end of that first 20 minutes. In the 21st minute, we got to see the first breakaway from the South African team. And this was something that sort of happened a couple of times throughout the game. The South African team certainly looked to be much better with some of the breakaways, but just not really managing to execute it to the full extent. A breakaway from the line out that no one really expected. They made a really nice break for it. I believe it was Steph du Toit made a real big break on that one. But Maro Itoje, superb. Right on the 5 metre line for the Lions try line, getting a turnover out of nowhere, really undeserved. Someone should have cleared him out, but absolutely superb breakdown. He also had another turnover about a minute before, further up the field as well. Itoje had a really good game in this one. Again, as I said in so many videos now, if he just sorts out his discipline and he plays that game on the right side of the 50-50 calls, he just has fantastic games. And no real penalties given away in this game, but the turnover rate from Itoje, really, really good. 25th minute, another penalty. Elliot Daly, this one was a little bit harsh, playing the ball on the floor. The referee was all about speed. He wanted clear, obvious release of the tackle and straight onto the ball and lifting. Elliot Daly skimmed his knee on the ground, barely, but got straight back to his feet and showed he was released. But unfortunately, a penalty for him there. Felt it was a bit harsh, but at least he was consistent in that. He did give one in the second half against South Africa for the exact same thing. So Pollard getting another kick there, taking them a little bit further away. As we move towards that 25th, 30th minute area, there were compound errors beginning to kick in. We had that Elliot Daly penalty given away. There was another issue in the lineouts. The first lineout going really wrong for them. Cowan Dickey just not straight, just throwing it to the front guy, straight to his left arm. A poor lineout, compound errors kicking in, giving away 2 lineouts by that point and just giving South Africa the scrum, which of course just tends to lead to more penalties when you go up against South Africa. There's no need to be doing it. The Lions scrum was good in this game. It was much better than in the SAA game, but they still don't want to be giving away too many of those scrums if they can help it. Only 3 minutes later again, penalty again, Henshaw holding onto the ball. That wasn't so much his fault. There was just no support. He just ran on his own into a tackle, expecting someone to support him. No one with him, and yet again, successful kick from Pollard. So that first 30 minutes, as you can see from the board, it's all just going South Africa's way. They look to really be in control of that game. The Lions almost managed to get back into it a little bit. There was a penalty to the Lions at the scrum time, which is so nice to see. They were really trying to impact that scrum. Tyke Furlong with a huge scrum, literally lifting Oxenche off the ground in the scrum, which is a hell of a move. Managing to do real good work there, getting the penalty, but unfortunately Biggar missed that kick. I think it was his only miss of the game, unfortunately for Biggar, but would have been very useful towards that half-time that had come in. There was another penalty just before half-time. Daly getting his own attempt to the kick here. There was a high tackle on Alan Wynne, but they actually got moved back like an extra 15 metres when that penalty was given, which I don't think they sort of expected. Slightly, we're not outside of Dan Biggar's range, but certainly not a percentage kick you'd want from Dan Biggar. So Elliot Daly coming in, 55 metre kick. It was another miss from the Lions there. Daly not managing to get that kick was a shame. And then finally in that 40th minute, the Lions' first real back-based attack, using good handling, spreading the ball wide, getting the missed passes when they could do. There was a lovely little play, Henshaw hitting the gap that we know that he can do, making a fantastic run, but there was a fantastic cover tackle by Willie LaRue, managing to shut down that attack and gave South Africa a scrum. South Africa got their own penalty at that scrum, moved up the field, but the Lions managing to hold out in that maul situation. If after Clerk said, we're not going to bother, losing any more points here. We're just going to go in at half-time, kick the ball out. And we went in at half-time, South Africa 12 and the Lions 3. And in all honesty, that scoreline felt quite fair. I really thought they could have got away with more, South Africa. They had a try that nearly came. There was 2 missed kicks from the British and Irish Lions. That could have pulled it back to 12-9. But in all honesty, it felt like a relatively fair scoreline. The South Africa dominating in possession, territory and turnovers, line out wins and penalties at the scrum, and just across the board less penalties. So first half all South Africa. On to the second half after a bit of a team talk with Warren Gatland, who I'm sure will have used a couple of expletives after that first half for them. The Lions on the attack very early. They got 2 early penalties straight from that kickoff, going really well for them. They got straight into the 22. Both the penalties, not even looking at the post, even when in the 22, they wanted that kick to corner. They got the kick to corners, and it only took 4 minutes into that second half for the first try of the game. Luke Cowan-Dickie, as I said in that preview video, I wasn't expecting to see Luke Cowan-Dickie do anything in that first half. I mean, it was really quiet from him. He's the impact player, and that second half was where it was going to kick in. This is where it was going to kick in. I don't think it would have been a bad move to have had him on the bench, but he did well in that first half, and we got to see him early in that second half, getting his own try, 5-metre maul. One of the few that has worked on this Lions tour and against the team you'd expect it to work against least, probably. So nice from him, and Dan Biggar did manage to get the conversion there. The Springboks, not wanting to be outdone, went for a try of their own. Only 2 minutes later, Willie LaRue crossing the board and putting the ball down. But you'll notice not on the board. Why, you ask? Well, the South Africa attack was really good. Dialende had a fantastic break, managing to just get away from Dan Biggar. The offload looked a little forwards, but you could argue flat. We've certainly seen things go more forward and not get called up, so that was fine. And then Lekanya Am kicking the ball onwards. Willie LaRue, absolute pace on the man. That was one of the things we were worried about, not having Zamet on that wing to cover the backfield. And LaRue making a fantastic run, picking up the ball and getting over the try line. But it was disallowed. The TMO, the South African TMO. So much talk around the TMO, going to be whether he's going to be biased, unbiased. I said in the live stream I did with the Guru that I thought it would actually go in Lions' favour because he would be so scrutinised to give anything towards the South African team. I actually disagreed with it. I thought you would probably maybe have given the try, but the try disallowed, opting that LaRue was ahead of the kick when it was taken. I think very friendly to the Lions on that one. I wouldn't have actually been surprised in a different game that could have gone the other way. We didn't have to wait long for the South African team to get their own try. Faf de Klerk getting his try in the 50th minute. There was a nice little break from Steph du Toit, who the ball just sort of bobbled all over the place. We did get to see almost a repetition of the England-Wales game with the Zamet kick-on, bouncing, knock-on sort of thing going on there. Passed to Mapimpi. Mapimpi got over the try line but knew he couldn't finish him himself. Passes the ball off underneath down to Faf de Klerk, who's about 3'2", and manages to get a fantastic try for himself there. I actually think that one was more controversial than the first one. I think personally I probably would have allowed the LaRue one and maybe have disallowed the second one due to the kick knock-on situation. I'm not fully caught up on the rules of where that goes. I don't even know what happened after the Wales-England game. There was outrage in that one. That was quite similar to me. So Faf de Klerk getting his try, but the first conversion miss of the game coming from Pollard in that one. Bit of a shame from him. He was doing so well up until that 50th minute in terms of kicking and didn't manage to get that one. There was a penalty in the 52nd minute which drew it back a little bit more level. Smith having a penalty, ripping the ball on the floor. This is what I said about the Very similar penalty given against Elliot Daly in that first half. Pretty much the exact same thing. Your knee scrapes the ground and rips the ball from Alan Wynne-Jones there. And Dan Biggar managing to get a successful penalty there in the 52nd minute. From that 50th minute, really, as you can see by the board, this is where the floodgates begin to open. Another penalty coming in. Lions on the big attack. There was a holding on to possession, working brilliantly from then. South Africa just can't really keep the discipline when the Lions are on form. And it was quite substantial throughout the game, really. When the Lions were in full-on attack mode, the South African team really struggled to be able to deal with them. It was just a tackle-by-tackle basis. There was another penalty conversion there from Biggar. There was one in the 63rd minute. South Africa dragging down the maul. So another penalty there. South Africa did get their own penalty in the 64th minute for Watson. It was Hamish Watson, sorry, had come on by this point, lifting the legs in the tackle, which could have been a yellow. I wouldn't have been surprised if that had been a yellow. I think, again, the Lions getting away a little bit lucky there. Pollard missing that one as well, so not going the way for them. But to be honest, the Lions' attack seems so much better in the second half. Watching the South African team, we really got to see they really only had one attack plan that was off of a scrum or maul to use first phase play off to a 12 to carry the ball directly into the line. And the recycling from the ball, the difference you see in Ali Price on the field compared to Faf de Klerk, the speed of the ball for the Lions compared to the South African team. The ball was so slow coming for the South African team. The ball would play the first phase, 12 in at the line, tackle man, compete at the breakdown, pass it out wide to a forward, pass it backwards to Willie LaRue, who would kick up and under and hope for someone to chase. And it seemed to be pretty much the only attack South Africa had. They seemed to run out of options very quickly in that second half. So I think that'll be something we'll be looking for from that South Africa team to try and enhance in that next game for me. After that Pollard miss in the 64th minute, we did have Owen Farrell come on for Daly, which was a big call. Owen Farrell coming on at 12, Henshaw moving to 13, Daly coming off, which I thought was a big call considering you might want a long-range kicker later in the game. The points difference really beginning to get narrow here. And for me, I think they were quite luckily saved. Dan Biggar went off for a HIA only about 2 minutes after that change happened. And so Farrell had to move back to 10, Daly back on at 13. And I actually think it was a better move. I would have taken Biggar off for Farrell at that point. I think the game just needed to be steadied down a little bit. As we move forward a little bit more, the 72nd minute, South Africa have another try disallowed. Diolende scoring a nice little try. It was a bit of a rough one, I think, really. There was, again, another kick on there. However, it was brought back for a knock-on that happened earlier against Colby, which was fair. That did happen, and I think there was a fair try disallowed. But I think South Africa will feel desperately disappointed that so many tries got disallowed. This game could have easily been, 30 points to the 20 margin had those tries been allowed. And just not managing to sort out the handling. The handling was probably the big thing for me. Discipline in handling from South Africa. It's things they can work on, but they certainly will feel like they lost that game on their own basis. 72nd to 77th minute was really just all Lions. The full-on attack, handling working well, using the backs more, pressure being applied, and they just worked their way down the field. This is why I was so surprised not to see it more in this game. Every time the backs had the ball, they were making ground. There was room on those wings. They were making good manoeuvres down there. And then finally, of course, that South African discipline kick, and again collapsing yet another maul. I believe it was Etzebeth for this one. And then Farrell decided to take the penalty, of course, using that full 90 seconds to drag in every second out. Farrell getting his successful penalty in the game there. And just when you think the game is all over, South Africa with the restart. It was a really good restart from them, managing to recycle the ball. They did look like they were going to get on the offensive. There was just a lot of players, a lot of subs coming on for them. Not a lot of people managing to have a great impact from that South African bench, as we sort of discussed in the chat with Guru. That was his biggest worry for this South African team, is whether later in the game they would be able to handle it, and unfortunately not. And there was a brilliant turnover ball yet again by that man Itoje. Had a fantastic game. And it was turned over and the ball kicked off by Hogg for a full-time score. Lions 22 to South Africa's 17. Lions win by 5. And I think you could argue either side, whether it was deserved or not. I think South Africa absolutely dominated that first half, and I think let it slip in that second half and just opened the door for the Lions, and they took full advantage of it. and well played to the Lions. You will see on the board here, I had man of the match, question mark. That's because for some reason in these commentaries now, they don't mention the man of the match as it's happening, or I'm just missing it every single week. I did the graphic, I've sat down to do this video, and as I was about to sit down, I did hear the man of the match was officially Itoje, which I think deserved. You will see down here, I put both Laws and Itoje. For me, would have been my cause. I actually might have lent slightly more towards Courtney Laws. I thought he had a better overall game. Work in the line-outs was brilliant. Dragging down the mauls was great. The running play for him was really good. I personally would have gone for Laws, but absolutely understand Itoje. The turnovers at the pivotal points in the game, you know, he's the man you need in there. So I think fair play for him, but I think a couple of people will be surprised by just how well Courtney Laws played in this game. But that's the first test over. Lions winning the first test versus South Africa. They'll be very happy with a lot of areas for them. Certainly a lot more kicking than I would have liked to see. Kicking away possession, they probably didn't need to. South Africa could certainly have won that game. They had the good game management in terms of the points taken when they could have got it. They missed a couple kicks themselves. South Africa could have had 6 extra points on there. That could have been a game winner. If you're not missing kicks, you're doing much better. I think it could have been an awful lot closer than that. I think that second half for me got away for South Africa. But the Lions will be very, very happy with that. And Warren Gatland will be very happy to see so many of those game plans work. And I still don't think we've seen everything from the Lions. I still think they're holding back a little bit. And it wasn't until that 70th minute they really began to unleash a little bit. And I feel like we've seen everything from South Africa, and that's where the scary element for me comes in. South Africa looking tired towards the end of the game, a lot of ball in play time. The kicking, not the best from them. The handling issues that were coming in. The attacking sort of systems they have seem to be very one-dimensional. I felt myself by the 50th minute. I knew exactly what they were going to do on each play. And every time they got a try, it was just basically a mess-up of Lions situations and them trying to make the most of it. And if those tries go over, as we saw in the South Africa A game, they do win. They make those game-winning decisions if they go their way. But if they don't go their way, it's a Lions win. And I think this test series could be, you know, changing from a bit of a coin toss now. I'm beginning to lean towards whether this could be a Lions whitewash here, in all honesty. Really changing it up for me, but there's a lot that's going to be discussed. Of course, I welcome you guys to drop down in the comments your thoughts on the game, the final scores, whether you thought it was deserved, whether you think South Africa were robbed, what you thought of some of those TMO decisions. I always enjoy reading down in the comments. And yeah, hopefully the preview video next week for this one will be a big call. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do another video with the Rugby Guru at some point this week, but make sure you subscribe to the channel just to keep up to date with all the latest videos as they do come onto the channel. And if you enjoy this one, make sure to drop it a like and make sure to drop down in the comments what you thought about this game on a whole. I hope you all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.